expert of first session is Dr. Ashish Sharma. So let me introduce you the brief of his introduction that Dr. Ashish Sharma obtained his Bachelor's of Engineering degree in Computer Science and Engineering from Government Engineering College, Bikaner, and Master's and PhD from MNIT Jaipur. He worked as a lecturer in the Department of CS&IS, BITS Pilani, Hyderabad campus, and was an assistant professor at the Department of Electronics Engineering in Vanasthali University. He is currently a faculty member in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at IIIT Kota. His area of research include high performance computing, multiple core architecture, network on chip, embedded system, and VLSI and cyber physical system. Dr. Ashish Sharma is having more than 20 years of experience in research and teaching. So today we are honored to have him, and I request Dr. Ashish to share his experience with all of us.
Thank you, ma'am, for introduce me and give me this opportunity to deliver this talk or share my knowledge on this platform. Uh, shall I start my presentation, or I will share my presentation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so that today I'm just delivering this talk on the optical network on chip communication architectures, or we can say optical communication architectures. And I have divided this presentation and talk into 5 basic modules. One is why we are shifting for unicore to multi-core processors, and another is why needed on-chip communication architectures like network on chip communication architectures, and third is the tool and techniques we are using in NOC, and what are the requirements to switch on an optical network on chip. Okay, so these 4 are basically the modules, and I will cover them one by one, one by one. So if we just talked about a system, a system will be have about 2 parts. One is your software, another is your hardware. So always the software is running over the hardware, and each and every your layer, like software or the hardware. So if you just look this, the figure first is a system stack which containing both the software and hardware, in which application, algorithm, programming language, operating systems are the part of software. Why the instruction set architecture to the physics, this is a part of your hardware. So the basically the what the computer architecture, the domain where we design ISA, instruction set architecture, then we implement it using somewhat microarchitecture, means the connection of the components and the organization of the components that we involve in the microarchitecture. Then after it, we synthesize it, and ultimately we goes to the physics level. So each and every layer is responsible for 3 metrics at least that we want with our system. One is performance, another is power, and third one is area. So we can say that the area is something how it is related to the weight, and the power is something related to the energy, and the performance is related to the what how fast our machine or our application is running on a hardware, or our system or the total stack provide this facility to execute it in a fast way. So if we talked about the first point is the application, so maybe possible we have the different applications. So suppose I have about application A1, or I can say this is a problem P1, And based on that, I have the multiple algorithms to solve it, A1 to AN. So I can solve this problem using any algorithms AN to N, which is providing the solution of this problem P1. Okay. So, but the set which is available for A1 to AN, I have to choose only one algorithm to implementation. So if I am just implementing these algorithms, then what is the main criteria? The criteria of choosing this algorithm is simply it can be performed fast, performance must be fast, and the power consumptions must be low, and the area which is taken by this algorithms means you can say this is the memory space it's taken by this must be very less. So these three criteria that I have choose just for a problem P1, which I have the number of solution which is available for A1 to AN. But the thing is very simple. Whenever we talked about a application, the application and the algorithms, the algorithm complexity that we measured in order of some computationals, or we can say we use asymptotic notations for algorithm performance by space-wise and time complexity. So you have got the three stack of this relation is one is average case, worst case, and best case analysis. And based on these one, we can choose any programming language which can be implemented my algorithm. So in modern systems, we are using C, C++, Java, Python, and so many languages. That is why high level language, which is available for writing the application or the algorithms to provide the interaction between the what operating system or then the operating system, or we can say system softwares like compiler and the operating systems which compile it and provide the user interface of what this application to the hardware. So these three stacks must be in a what native means they must be available on the same stacks, the compiler, algorithm, application, and operating systems. Then my machine is interact, my application is interact with the hardware. Then the one layer is also is available that is called hardware abstraction layer, HAL. Then the HAL provide me a platform which interact my device driver and all these things or that convert what the user interface into the what my hardware interface. So if I am talking about a hardware, the hardware is basically consisting of a instruction set architecture. That instruction set architecture is simply we know about it. That is something I have written here is add R1, R2, and R3. So that instruction set architecture design, that is ISA design, is basically can be done by the architecture pupils. So you can add the number of register here. That means the number of operands here, the length of operands, how many operands, how many registers, what is the way of communication, maybe your register to register, maybe register to memory, memory to memory, and what is the capability of this add. It may be what depends on how many bits the R2 and R3 contain. Okay, so ultimately this add is the add is converted into 01, that is called the opcode. Then the my operand is converted into 01, that is my uh, opcode is converted into 01, and the opcode plus operands both are called the machine code. So ultimately we reach to a machine code which is essential uh, for a design. So how this add R1, R2, R3 is designed. Okay, so suppose a program have about the number of instruction like add R1, R2, R3, then the subtract R3, R4, R5, maybe multiplication R1, R5, R6, and maybe some dependencies can be available. So what the architecture we designed to uh, perform the operation is operation on a machine that is depends on our microarchitecture. The microarchitectures contain maybe your pipelining, cache policies, how the cache is organized, how the pipeline is working, the depth of pipeline, and all these things it can be implemented in the microarchitecture, and how the communication is going on. Maybe possible off-chip communication, on-chip communication can be a part of that. Okay, then the register transfer level, that is RTL language is a part of it. Then you have what is state machine, multiplexer, and all these things. Then after it, we are converting all these parameters into the logic gates. So because the thing we are constructing from uh, these constructing these things,
Participants, please mute yourself. Sumit
these
Bharadwaj.
gates. So logic gates are basically used to build the upper circuits. Then we use somewhat the circuits which is available, which is driven by the CMOS. So my device may be what my CMOS, FinFET, and anything, and the physics behind it. So so ultimately, things is that this hardware is a part of a stack which is providing me a performance. So whenever I choose a performance-centric design, then maybe I choose a pipeline architecture which increase my throughput, and the another that I can use a technology-based design, that I can choose a
Just a second, sir. Mute him.
Sumit, can you please mute yourself?
Just a second.
Shall I start? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the computer architectures is the architecture provide feedback to guide application and technology of research direction. And these physics, device, circuit, and gate these these are technology constants, and the new technologies make new architecture possible. Okay.
Ashish, sir, just wait for 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Now you can start.
Okay. So the physics, device, and gate, these are the what technology constants. So the new technology makes the new architecture possible. Okay. So we have what the physics, device, circuit, and gate. So you introduce new physics, then you find the new device, and maybe possible you are introducing some of the technology constants or the nanometer technology you are building here. So you can build a new gate library. So based on that, you can synthesize your design. So the thing is very clear. The technology constants, the new technology make new architecture possible. Okay. And the computer architecture is basically the architecture provides the feedback to guide application and technology research directions. So suppose you build a Pentium 4 here, then you have one application, then you can say the technology perspectives, you cannot take more power for in a Pentium 4. And sometimes you can say application, you cannot run so many multiple application on it. So the computer architecture say the technology must be updated, and sometimes you can say about the application must be updated. Okay, so these are the stacks which we are using for designing a good performance system. Okay, so if you just see this these layers, the physics, device, circuit, gate, and RTL. This is what something you can say the hardware stack. And here the ISA we have designed it and then implement with the microarchitecture. and the other one is upper layer is basically your software layers. So why we need a operating system? The simply, if a user is a single user and single resource, that is my hardware, there is a no need of operating system. So a user can directly communicate to resources. But if you have about m number of users and n number of resources, maybe the m is greater than n. In that case, you don't know which users want the which resources. Then you have to use a managing software that is called the operating system, which is map the what user to your resources. Okay, so this is very simple way to represent a computer systems. Next, if I'm talking about a simple behavior of a system which containing the B1 is a process which have what A into A is a computation and V1 is a variable for it. Then the B2 and B3, these are two concurrent process and both are involving the V1 variable which is passed to B2 and B3, and same thing, the V3 is computed using the B1 variable, and we can join the B2 and B3 variables in a process B4. So basically this is a process state machine that have the process capital B1, then the B2, V3 and V4. If you look the B4 very carefully, it have two sentences. One is B2 plus V3, that are the two variables only, two variables, and it calculate the square root of V4 in and implemented just stored in the C. So you can concurrently do that B2 and B3, but you have to join in B4. So the specification is very clear. If I match this specification, this process state machine or this behavior on a executable machine, that is my processing element PE1. Another is my PE2 is a processing element, maybe a processor. It may be a application specific integrated circuit, or it can be a you can say DSP processor, or it can be maybe a possible it is a simple IP. Okay, so that is about intellectual properties. So if I have the what right now the three major processing elements, the P1, P2, and P3. So the B1 behavior I match to P1, which is executing on the P1, and the B2, which is executing on the P2, and the P3 at the P3, I just go with the multiple P3 and P4. Okay, so these two processes are running on a single machine. So you can say the two processes are running on a processing state machine third. But the thing is very simple. It's not a very simple that looks, because each and every process is shared the variables. So B1 is shared with the what the B2 and B3, and same the B2 and B3 shared by the what the process B2 and B3. So there is a way to what share the process is you have to create or you have to use the message passing, and another is the shared memory. The way. So suppose the V12 is a channel, logical channel, which is communicating between the PE1 and PE2. So this is the behavior B1 and B2 are communicating through a logical channel, which is CV12. Same about whenever I talked about the CB2, this is the what channel number 2, which is communicating to the devices. And maybe possible this is the what shared variable B3 here is only here. So I have to use another channel. Maybe if I am passing the B1 to B3, so maybe possible the CB13 may be possible, and sometimes it may be possible that the same is C23 is also possible. So the number of logical channels are available to communicate between these processing elements. And the major thing, how we schedule them, which one communicate first, because you have a what bus only, you have a only bus. So you just see that this is the communication model. C12 is a variable channel which is providing between these two. C11 is the channel between the PE1 and PE13, and CV2 is a channel between the PE2 and P3. Okay, and the V3 is simply shared between these process B3 and B4 because they are on the same processing element. Then all these three, 1, 2, and 3, these three channels map to my bus. Okay, then I used a somewhat processing element or some hardware or scheduler which can schedule these three variables, these three channels. So which can communicate first, that depends on the how you design a Arbiter. Okay, maybe this is what the priority based, maybe your first come first serve and all these things. Okay, so you have the two things that is coming right now is one is processing element and one is the communication. Okay, so there is a race between compute and communication. Okay, so the thing is very simple. If I have to map these process on the processing elements, then I have to design as a mapping algorithm. So one is research area, how you smartly map your application to cores. Okay, and another is you have to design some arbiter, smartly arbiter, which can what use the least communication cycles in it. Okay, and another is you have to distribute these processes in such a way that the processor which is native to this B1 or B2 of the process, it can be computed by the nature. Okay, now so ultimately what is in these channels, you have somewhat address line, data line, and you have what some uh, ready and ACK signals in it, because this is what inside a bus. Okay, so we just create a bus based on this application communication. Okay, so till now if we see this, if I have a specification, then how I am going to match it. Okay, is it clear to everybody? I think. Okay, so next is whenever I need a multiple processing units, PE1, PE2, PE3, then I have to increase my transistor count. So Moore's provide me the facility, still providing the facility that I can add more transistors on my chip. Okay, so basically, if I am increasing the number of cores, the processing elements, then I have to need more transistors. Okay, so this is the what transistor count per year. So Moore's provide me this facility, and the technology which is we are using, the downscaling of technology, means we are working right now. Previously we are at the what 180 nanometer, then the what 45, 35, and right now the systems are available with the what 7 nanometer technology. So you can pack more and more transistors on the same chip area. Okay, so you can build the more number of cores in it. But if you just look where the problem is started, the gate delay is shrinking with the technology. Okay, the gate delay is shrinking with the technology, but the connection between the gate, which is provided by the interconnections wires, the wire delay is going exponentially. Okay, so this is uh, we are making our computational unit fast, but this computational unit cannot be communicating the so much fast that the my compute unities are working. Okay, so because just that this is the word, just the based on the technology trends, because we are increasing the number of component in a chip, and we can see the number of transistor on it. So there is a possibility. So this is the possibility, we are adding more and more wires for connection for it. But unfortunately, this graph is saying that your interconnection delay is increasing exponentially. So there is a not a beneficial for me that the gate delay is reducing, but my interconnection delay is increasing. So somehow I have to manage the compute versus communication. Okay. Now, if you just see the interconnection length, the meter per centimeter square. So suppose I have a chip which is what some centimeter square, and how many meters of wires I have used in it. If you just see in 2015 or 17 or 19, it is near the 6,000 meters. So how long I am by using in it? That is the interconnection. And the previous graph shows me that if I'm using the more number of connections or the interconnect wire, so this is the wire delay is increasing. In that condition, if I'm using this types of platforms, then it will be not beneficial for me. So if the another technology trend is very clear, the based on this previous, that you are packing more and more transistor in it, obviously, and based on this, the more facility, you are adding more cores per chip, and this is the power. Somehow this is the saturated. It's not going. It's constant here. Okay, and the frequency is also, this is what the flatten here. Okay, but the core is increasing. So why it will be happen? It is the question why we are switched to the multi-core. If you look at the what the Pentium 4 in 2004 design, they are approaching to the near 4 gigahertz or 3.5, 3.6 gigahertz frequency. But the frequency, that is my dynamic frequency, half CB square F, is heat dissipation is increases. So based on this heat dissipation, my chip can be burned out. Okay, so Intel is designing one chip that is about pre-hot chip. So this can be not providing the facility to what increase the frequency, because based on this frequency I am generating some heat or the temperature that cannot be sustained by the chip. So after Pentium 4, we have suddenly switched to lower frequency levels. Okay, so Pentium 4 have about single core. It's a single core. It's working on the some near to 4 gigahertz. But right now, if you just look at your processors, which are only working on 2.2 gigahertz, 2.6 gigahertz, or 2.5 gigahertz, and 2.8 gigahertz. Okay, so why we are switching toward the lower frequency, and the performance is simply related to the frequency. So if I'm putting the what the one formula that you people know about it, CPU execution time, that is instruction count IC, and then instruction per cycle and top. So how many instructions used in it? And I can put a sigma here. So suppose is add is taking the one clock cycles, and the number of instruction of add is 5. So 5 multiply by this. Okay, and every instructions have about the clock cycle. So I can put this clock cycle is 1 upon f. So if I'm increasing the f frequency f, the execution time is decreases. So whenever the execution time is decreases, my performance is increases. Okay, so this is the performance is simply, if I can say, the performance is directly simply is a proportional of 1 upon f. So whenever I am increasing my frequency, okay, my performance is what increasing. Okay, is it clear? Because it's so to increasing the frequency, but the f is something related to half CV square f. So this is what the power, that is dynamic power, that is we have. So half CV square f means I'm designing a system which is increasing the what my power dissipation, that is converted into the heat. So the heat is basically, we can say the rule is the Dennard scaling. The word is Dennard scaling. This told me that you cannot increase the frequency randomly. Okay, or you cannot increase the frequency more than what the 3.5 gigahertz or 3.8 gigahertz, because the Pentium 4 can be burned out. Okay, so there is the only way is possible that I have to reduce the frequency to increasing to sustain my chip. But if I'm increasing the decreasing the frequency, my performance is degraded. So what happens if the frequency is degraded? Okay, so there is only way I have to use the multiple execution unit which provide me seamless execution. So that's why I'm using the multiple core that can accommodate the more number of processors on it. and I reduce the individual core frequency. Okay, so right now, if you just talk about, if you just heard about core to dual core, they have the least, they have used the lesser than frequency of the Pentium 4. So maybe they are working on the 2.2 gigahertz, 2.4 gigahertz, and before it, the Pentium 4 is running on the single core is running on a 3 gigahertz frequency. Okay, so it's possible just because of we are reducing the frequency and we provide the parallelism. So provide the parallelism in the core is simply nothing is you are adding the resources. Okay, so if you are adding the resources means you are adding the core, means you are adding the transistors. So if you are adding the transistors means you are increasing the computation, and sometimes you are increasing the what, your interconnection delay. So it's very simple that the technology trends, which is restricted by the about power and the frequency, and but I need the more number of cores that is facilitated by the transistors. Now I have to come another era of multi-core designs. Okay, multi-core designs. So the inferences of this interconnect design have to be interconnect aware, and the shift from computation-centric design to communication-centric design, and the shrinking in technology mostly affect the leakage power and power density, and the power density increment lead to the what, rise in temperature, and the rise in temperature ultimately affect the performance and the reliability of a system or a chip. Okay, so the next point is how this is related to that. If you just know about the one classical Y chart, which is provided by the Professor Daniel D. Gajaski, that he say that you have about the behavior, structure, and the physical domain. And whenever you are moving towards what the behavior to structure to physical, this is what is synthesis. Okay, so if you are at the system level, the upper layer, at the system layer, where you have the what CPU, memory, and buses, then it is called the system synthesis. If you are at the what processor level, this is called processor synthesis. If you are the logical level, this is logical synthesis. If you are the circuit level and the gate level, then it is called at what the circuit synthesis or the gate synthesis. But somehow we have to relate it, these synthesis have to relate it with a time, power, temperature, and aging. So the Professor Wolfgang Nebel has proposed the Y chart 2.0, and is saying that if you are using or executing something is a per component activities informations on some particular time. So if suppose you have a program adds, subtract, and multiplication instruction, and you want to be executed with some frequency level, so you must have to define some time here for that. So within that time, so you generated some power and energy, and based on this power and area, because whenever you have the half CV square F, that is the what dynamic power, yeah, heat dissipation part, which is converted into the heat, and this is must be dissipated on the particular chip area. So you must have to know about the area which is accommodated this power which is generated by the chip, and based on the temperature conditions or the temperature design that you are just these temperature can be what varying your voltage and current based phenomena, and these temperature distributions somehow affect the transistor basic properties, and transistor can be degraded, and we can say this transistor is aged. Okay, so what is transistor aging is something is you are degrading the performance of it based on the some temperature distributions. Then these are the mechanism. If you know about the heard about the NVTI, negative bias temperature instability, and thermal migration, and another TDDB and thermal cycles. So these are responsible for aging a transistor that based on the some temperatures, because the basic parameters of the transistor are affected. Now my design must be performance, power, temperature, and aging that is related to the reliability. So reliability aware. So if I have to accommodate the last point, that is my aging or the reliability, okay, then I have to must think about the design first. Okay, so I can provide the facility at the each level first, second, third, and fourth, which can accommodate the all the designs of the systems, okay, or enhance the system design. Now, so if I have the processor one, which is the previous is technology part, so now I have a processor one, processor two, then the another is what my ASIC application is specific integrated circuit. Here is the DSP processor and here is the memory. So each and every processor have the what the local memory, and these may be the heterogeneous system, because ASIC can be work at the processor 2, maybe work at the 8-bit processor, 16-bit processor, maybe processor 1 is what my general purpose processor is 32-bit or 64-bit processor, but somehow the DSP processor is only my working for DSP's application, and the ASIC may be for my codec, simple codec chip, so it can be used only cosine transformations and all these things. So what happens, I have to think about the application mappings on these processors, okay, execution unit or processing elements. So the codec applications must be matched as the what ASIC, if ASIC is providing this facility. If 8-bit processing, particular processing is done by the processor 2, so must be matched to this one, and the DSP applications must be matched to the DSP processors. That's why I can claim to a performance. But ultimately, whenever these all are communicating or updating some the part of the memory, which is the shared memory here, they are goes through the bus, okay. So every, suppose the P1 process is running here, P2 is running here, and P3 is running here, they must have about the message passing, that then they have the what some channels, logical channels, they are mapped to the bus. But the problem is started with that bus. If suppose somehow my bus is failed, okay, then the communication is what is stopped. Another thing is, if I am putting the more number of component on the bus, the wire length of this what bus is increasing, okay. So that we have seen that the interconnection delay is increasing just because of if we are using the more number of interconnect wires, okay, and the power dissipation is also increases. Now I have to think about the new architecture, which is which can be what distributed and providing me a full bandwidth and also give me a fault tolerance, okay. So that can be possible via the network on chip architectures, okay. So we have designed a new interconnect architecture that is called what a network on chip. So previously, if you have the processing element and memory and other one, then you have to what point to point interconnections. So in point to point interconnections, if you see that they are basically uh, failed due to the what large number of wire connections, because if you are using the large number of wire connections, then you cannot accommodate them, okay. So also the floor plan placement and routing is also affected by that. Still they are providing the what 100% bandwidth between the each elements, but the feasibility of these wires floor plan placement and routing is not possible very easily, okay. Now then the bus is coming, the same problem is with the bus, it can be possible the bus architectures, the propagation delay along the bus increases with the length and reduce its operating frequency, okay. And the sharing of the bus resources at the recent technology would increase the crosstalk noise and variabilities, okay. Now another is you can choose, because this is the what the bus, which may be your 16 core bus, and here may be your 32-bit, this is what 8-bit, so you have to design a single bus for that. So you have to use the more number of what interface unit or the communication units, which can be provide the compatibility the bus and the CPUs, okay. So this is also a problem. Then the pupils come up with the what another way is hierarchical bus architecture, but the same problem is with this. If you adding a bridge and another component, then you must have to what pay for latency, okay, and also the power is another concern. Then the pupils come up with the what ring-based interconnection architectures, but still, if you this CPU wants to communicate with this CPU, then if the one of its connection is failed, then you cannot say this is maybe possible, okay. Now, the crossbar is coming after it. So the multiple bus and the crosswire are communicating to each other. But the problem is that simple. The crosswire itself is a very huge network which used the lot of wires and the connection, which is lead to be a performance loss and also the power constraints. So the thing is that we have to look for the things. If I am if I am putting my if I am putting my number of process on a single core and it can be accommodated easily, rather than I am distributing it to the what another core. If the communication is increases, then we cannot do that. So there must be some matrix that the your communications delay must be less than the what computational delay somehow that can be managed. Okay, so this it is also fail. Then we have to use NOCs. Okay, so why NOCs? So none of the above architectures, the previously we have discussed, have the capabilities to handle the communication challenges of the multi-core architectures. The new interconnection architecture is needed uh, just because of the we are increasing the number of cores, so they can accommodate these number of cores without degrading the performance, and also they can what synchronize in between the what the computational delay and the communication delay, and also what the gate delay, or you can say the interconnection delay. And another thing, it must be fault tolerant and flexible to adopt the new number of cores also. Okay, so if you just look about the buses, they are fell after about 20 or the 14 core architectures, but the network on chip seamlessly provide this seamlessly provide the accommodation of what the new number of cores on a chip, same chip. So the network on chip has been projected as a solution towards the flexible, scalable, modular, and the fault tolerant architecture. Okay, and this can be what connect the number of homogeneous and heterogeneous both types of connections, okay, on a single chip. So if you just uh, see the table, that is many core chip which is using the NOC and NOC presently. So single chip cloud computer SEC, the Intel which have the 48 core which using the NOC, and the teraflop research, this is also using the what with the 80 core Intels is also using NOC network on chip. Then the Tile GX100 which is have the what 100 Telera chip which is using also NOC, the network on chip, and the Epiphany board or Adaptiva, that is the vendor of Adaptiva, that is have the 60 core. And right now this is the what thousand of core chip is available which is using the still NOC. Okay, now they are using the NOCs because the bus is failed to provide these types of facility. So basic thing is that traditional interconnects are not able to provide these requirements. And one of the professor is Delhi from MIT is saying that you have to route the packets, not wires. Okay, you have to route the packets, not wires. So you just use the what the minimum number of wires it can be possible. So in previously in the what in 2000 we are using hierarchical bus, then the bus metric. Now out of 2010 we are using the network on chip in the kilo cores. So right now the products are available with the NOC. Okay, so NOC are now right now the feasible uh, semiconductor solution for multi-core architecture. Okay, so this is the basically the thing that we have to consider in the multi-core. So this is the what you can say now start the era of network on chip communication. If we see this network of chip or interconnect communication architectures, it's have what two views. One is macro views, another is micro view. So micro view is something is related to the micro architecture, and the macro view is something related to the what routing logic and topologies we are going to be used. Okay, so the NOC it's have about components. So NOC have the what the tile architecture, it have about router and the link. There are these are the what primary two parts of NOC, and each router is connected to a IP core or something what you can say processing element and a network interface or network adapter. So if you just look at this architecture that you have about router, this is the boss, this is the what mesh architecture, 4x3. So you have what 4 rows and 3 columns. Okay, and each and every router is connected with a core and NI with the help of NI. So this is what network interface, which is converting my the compatibility of what the communication, or you can say packets or messages or the flits which are using in NOC, in the sense of NOC, and transmitted it to the routers. Then we have to define the address of each router, okay, in it. Is it clear to everybody? I think, okay. So this router have the, the internal architecture is, it have about number of input buffers, then the routing logic. Because these are the input buffers, we are using a virtual channels in it. So they are providing the virtual channel allocator. Then you have a switch, which is a switch allocator, and the crossbar, and this is what outflit. So suppose this is the source and this is the destination, and we are using algorithm or routing logic. That can be my algorithm, or that can be my logic based. Okay. So suppose if I'm using the XY routing, so first I have to visit the X, then I have to visit the Y. So first I have to visit the X, then I have to visit the Y. Okay. So XY routing algorithms. So once, if I am talking about the routing algorithm, it must be what? It must be deadlock free. Okay. And live lock free. So uh, if you are using XY, this is what the very classical example of this algorithm, which is, you can say, deadlock free. Okay. So suppose this router is passing some information to the neighbor one. So the flits are coming to this router. So this router, and these are the what input buffers. And after it, somehow it have to decide it where it will be go for this or this. Okay. So each and every router have about at least how many ports? One. So if you just look at the center one, the 4 direction, north, south, east, and west, and one is for 4. So there is a 5 input output port of a router. Okay, that can be communicated by the router. So once the fleet is coming on this router, it goes into the input buffers. Okay, then the input buffer, if suppose the another router have about sending some packets, and this router have about the first packet to be communicated this, and another is communicated by this. So what the input buffers, the number of input buffers, if the buffer is only one, then it have a problem. Okay. So once the message is not passing to the what particular uh, router, it must have to with the buffer. So once it is blocking, so that's why I'm creating the number of virtual channels, or I can logically divided my buffers into the what different layers, the 3 layers of this one, 3 layers of this one, like a cache, simply the set. So one packets of the different destination is going into the different virtual channel and different virtual channels. Okay. So that's why we can what stop the what line of uh, head of line blocking of a packets, and we are increasing the what throughput of this network on chip. So this is the what internal architecture of the router, that we have seen that the input buffer is first. This is what the virtual channels, number of virtual channels here, the number of virtual channels here. So that's why we can accommodate and simultaneously send the packets to a different destinations. Okay. Now this is the what the topology of ring topology. So A and B are the what, suppose this is the source and this is the destination. So we can what send by this or this, but it have about something lacking in, but you can say this is what ring topology. So someone is false, so maybe provided by this way of the communication. Same about the mesh. This is what A and this is B. So suppose this is this link is failed, and previously I am talking about only A and B. Okay, sorry, these are my destination, A is about my source. So XY is XY algorithms. I am saying that X is here, then I have to go Y, but I have to write a code for in such a way, or I have to provide some routing logic in such a way that can be fault tolerant. So they can be the routing, maybe my adaptive routing. So it can be based on my traffic, it can be based on my fault, or it can be based on my power analysis, it can be based on my thermal analysis. Suppose somehow I see this router have a what heavy workload. So now I have to what move the packets from this direction to this direction. Okay, so these are adaptive routing algorithms which are providing the facility to communicate between the source and destinations routers or the cores, but still these adaptive algorithms ensure that they must ensure that they are deadlock free. So the virtual channels is also a one way to what providing this facility for deadlock preventions. Okay, then this is the what torus. So why we are using the torus side of mesh? Because whenever if I'm talking about this A to this node, this take the time of one hop. Okay, but if in torus, this is the word completely one hop of this to this. So what happen if suppose this torus is what 8 cross 8, so what the last one is communicating of the what the column is to a first one, so you just got reached by the one hop. Okay, so it reduce the what communication delay. So different topologies can be possible. So the root computes, the major work of the root is forwarded the packets. Okay, is it clear? Then the root computation use provide me something that is uh, based on the algorithms or something based on about the hardware logic that I'm using it. Okay, and they must be deadlock free. Now the real picture is coming here. You are merging all together. Okay, you are merging all the technology nodes together. So you have what NOC performance, then power, then temperature, then reliability, then you have a what something physics here. So we can say the throughput. If I have to increase the throughput, which is I'm uh, calculating using the flits per cycles and latency, which is in the clock cycles at the system level. So your NOC must be what conjunction free. Okay, so conjunction in NOC is maybe possible, and faulty node is also possible. So you have to what awareness of the traffic if you want the performance. So analyze the traffic and the routing algorithms, and you can provide the feedback of what conjunction aware routing, router microarchitectures. You can increase the number of VC, arbitration schemes, allocation schemes, pipelining architecture, router, and the crossbar inside it. Double pump the architectures of the crossbar also. Okay, so that can be increase your performance. But whenever you are running something on it, it it have a what particular area and it generates some power. So once if you are generating some power, your dynamic and leakage power and the buffer powers are the dominated components, and somehow the you have to control the switching activities because the dynamic power is responsible for 0 1 to 1 to 0 is switching. Okay, so control switching activities. Now you can use also dynamic voltage frequency scaling, clock getting, power getting technology to enhance the power aware NOC architecture. So you can say the power is calculating in the watt and the area is meter square. So you have the matrix energy delay matrix, energy delay area matrix. So power and energy efficient architecture you have to develop, and the conjunction aware power optimization is also possible. Okay. Now the power is generating the temperatures. So maybe some node is what thermal hotspots. So then you have to what temperature control the temperatures using what dynamic thermal management, that is the DTM scheme. So you have to use the cooling techniques, thermal aware routings, and the task migration from the hotspot nodes. These are the possible solutions, and you can what calculate the temperature in Kelvin, and the TDP is thermal design power is the power which is the constants that can be sustained by a chip. So the temperature threshold is TDP. So you cannot trigger more than this power because it lead to the what temperature failure of or the hotspot failure of a chip. So if the temperature is greater than the threshold values, route the packets away from the hotspot nodes and the conjunction aware thermal managements. You have to route. Okay, then the temperature is lead to the what the is something how affect the reliability. So reliability can be what aging or failure of a chip. So you have to design a multi BDD techniques or multi threshold techniques here, because somehow if some of the what the transistor is property is affected, that is working on the less performance, or it produce the what larger delay, then you have to use a multi-threshold cells on it and the multi-VDD cells on it. So that's why you can provide it the solution at the what device level. So reliability at the system level, we can calculate it as the mean time to failure. At the device, we can just calculate the device degradation. That is, we can use the what NVTI negative wire temperature instabilities enhancement techniques. So conjunction aware reliability enhancement is possible whenever if I'm using here. Power aware reliability enhancement is possible if I'm tackle the problem here. Temperature aware reliability enhancement here. So it can be possible here because they cannot be lead to the reliabilities problems. And last, if we goes at the reliabilities degradation, then we have to think about these solutions also. Okay, so this is the what complete stack, how the NOC at work at the different metric and the different level of architectures. Okay. Now, just these are the word that the levels. So MTTF, we are calculating some of failures at the reliability here, and at the gate level, your NVTI effect, which is performed by the duty cycle. SCI effect is activity factors, and NVTI, SCI, and most that is depends on the stress. And last is what the device is what aging mechanism or modeled independently. We have to think about it. Okay, so it can be what multi VTH, and you have to what read access time about these things. Then the switching activities you have to calculate it, or the failure you have to what think about the what data corruption and timing violations. So all these stacks are combined together, which is are affecting the performance of a NOC. Now, what system level simulators are available to that? So the multi-core simulators, which is providing um, by larger open source community is Graphite. I think the Graphite is made by the MIT, and the Gem5 is open community, and the Sniper is also is available for multi-core simulators. But the NOC simulators is dedicated is available Nirgam, which is the product of Southampton University and the MNIT Jaipur, and GMM Noxim is a simulator of the NOC, which is provided by the Polytechnic the Valencia, Spain, and the Noxim is I think from Korea, and I don't know so from which, and the Booksim is also from Stanford. Okay, and the power simulators uh, is Orion 2.0, which is what NOC power simulator. MacPack, this is what the multiple core power area timing simulator, which can include the power of the memories, core, and the NOC. And this is what Descent is also a power calculating tool, which is used for both photonic and the electron and photonic, so what electronics and photonics NOCs. So we integrated the Nirgam with the MacPact and Orion to trace the powers, and these powers we will calculate just because of we want to face the reliability. So these are the NOC power modeling tools, and the Cacti, which is inside the what Orion, which is providing the basic power module of a leakage dynamic, of a cache buffers, and the different types of memories. Okay, now just so NOC thermal modeling tools. So how we calculate the thermal at the because we cannot go at the what each and every time we go for the simulation of the Verilog code and we design a device or some floor plan placement and routing. So we have to find out some the tools which is can be providing me a system level simulations. So that are the what thermal simulations is what using by the hotspot University of Virginia tools, and 3D ICs, 3D IC tool for the 3D multi-core layers, and the floor plan tool is hot floor plan based on the power traces and the floor plan definitions, aspect ratios, and we have integrated what all these together. Okay, so and the reliabilities is also we have modeled one is REST tool, reliability estimation tool. So that is what REST tool. So all put be together inside a simulator, or you can say we merge all these tools and create a framework. So you have a NOC performance simulator. So you feed the number of application traffics, maybe your real-time benchmarks, the parsec benchmarks, and splash, and the application traffic maybe your synthetic traffics. Okay, bit reversal, bit and the multimedia traffic. And you have to configure the NOC on the buffer size, mesh size, routing logic, and how many number of clock cycles you want it. Then this NOC simulators providing you a throughput, latency, okay, and utilization. Then sometimes which inputs you are feeding here, based on that it creates the what Orion is giving you a power and area traces. So that is the area of this chip used by this simulator, and this is the power is creating by this traffic on this NOC configurations. So then I feed these power traces and area into hotspot thermal simulator. Here I have to configure it just based on the what the device which I am using to make the what fabrications. So I put the all the specifications in it. So it will give me a what temperature traces which are mapped to my floor plan. Okay, which are mapped to my floor plan, and then I find out somewhat thermal hotspot in it. Then I have to pass this temperature traces and floor plan to a reliability estimation tools. Means ultimately you are providing the thermal hotspot for calculating the reliability, and it will give me what the MTTF, mean time to failure of a device. Okay, just what happens? So I can tackle the power here. So based on this feedback, I can use a somewhat the mechanism power aware distributions, thermal aware distributions, thermal aware routing algorithms, power aware routing algorithms, or you can say what learning algorithms, Q learning algorithms based on that. So in machine learning, you can use to what accommodate this also. So there have about the different research problems associated at this level, this level, this level, and this level. Okay, but this is the what somehow these are the power analysis for 4x4 matrix. If you have the what flit size in what 2, 3, 4 bytes, then the Orion 3 is giving you a power in the watts. Is this is the power estimations results of it. Then these are the what buffer size if you are increasing, then simultaneously it's increasing the what the power. Then the number of virtual channels if you are increasing, means ultimately you are increasing the what the channel the buffers, so its power is also increasing. Then this is the temperature, maximum and minimum temperature based on these buffers. So we have calculated it in what 16, 32, and 64 buffer size for 4x4 matrix from frequency 1 to 4 gigahertz. So this is at the 1, 2, 3, and 4 gigahertz, and this is what temperature in Kelvin is available here. So whenever I'm using the more number of buffers, or the buffer is what size is increasing, the temperature is increasing. Okay. Now this is the what the thermal profile we have developed with the what the help of the hotspot simulators. You see that this is what 324 Kelvin here, and it increases the 331. So it is nothing, which is it is nothing. This is simply a hotspot. Here is the red one, and the blue one is the cool one. So yellow is so blue to red. We are increasing the temperature here. So your router 01 is hotspot router, and we have to just think about how to reduce this hotspot and providing the different techniques for this. Okay, we have created a thermal failure profile, which is each router is failed. Okay, so the least one, so the most one is what the 7.480 is the failure of just 01 router, which is what my hotspot router. So this is what more vulnerable. Okay, and if you just see that the numbers here, it is reduces here 5.8, 4.8, and something this one. So this is what the based on that thermal profiles, the things are routers are what you can say a going into the hotspot node or the failure node. Okay, so failure profile analysis is something very clear. So we have to what reduce them. Okay, now just think about how can we accommodate them. Okay, so we have to reduce the power simply. Okay, or we have to spread the temperature. We have to spread the heat. Okay, so I have used somewhat the different architectures which can be what enhance your power budget. Okay, or they can be what simply we can say the power oriented architectures. So you use HVT NVT router mesh. So HVT is nothing, is high threshold voltage, is a normal threshold voltage NVT. So you are mixing these HVT NVT routers. So if you are using a LVT routers, so its frequency is very high. So its frequency is very high, then the what it created the more power, then the more thermal. Same about if you are talking about the HVTs, it's using the high threshold voltage, so you are using somewhat somehow your VDDs must become and your switching is come. So HVT NVT routers, so mixed cell routers can be what reduce your power budget and somehow they are reducing the thermal hotspot. Okay, so this is nothing. So we have mixed using the HVT buffer routers in it, and uh, we reduce the power based on the technology nodes. Okay. So if you just see that the supply voltage at the HVT is 0.8 and the operating frequency is 0.2, where whenever I'm using the LVT cell, which is what 1.2 and operating at 3.0 frequency, so the operating voltage is also high and the frequency is high. So that's why we can reduce if we use the more HVT cell at the what hotspot node, then we can reduce the temperature of power. So the power budgets is what LVT is very high and HVT is very low. Just, this is what reflection of the experiment with the Orion 3 with 4 cross 4 mesh, and the traffic is simply, you can say this is a traffic of multimedia traffic. Okay, and this is the what the floor plan without thermal power aware floor plan. So this is what hotspot node here. So it reached to about 3 degree centigrade temperature. Okay. Now, this is the power aware floor plan thermal profiles. So that we have used HVT, NVT routers, and that will be reduce the temperature of a NOC. So that we have used here in it. So this NOC, if you just see previously, it goes to 331 and it have right now, it have only 329. So why this is the, if you just carefully looking this graph, its structure is something different. And this structure is something different. So what we are doing in it, we create some power traces. If you just look the previous slides, we created a power trace here based on the area and the power traces. We are creating a floor plan, which is thermal aware floor plan. So simply, this is the what thermal aware floor plan, thermal aware, yeah, sorry, power aware floor plan. So that's why it reduced the what hotspots nodes. So if you look at these are the what blue ones, the previously they are the red ones. Okay, the same number of nodes in it, same traffic, but it reduced the what 329 degree, and here is 331. So we can, the one way that uh, we have to think about the floor plans. Okay, how we are creating the chips organization. Okay, so basically, what is the floor plan? How these blocks are put, vertical, horizontal, where it can be put. Okay, then we use another is HVT buffer based thermal profile. So it can be also what the power aware. So it reduces to 320. So hotspot it's always reduces. If I combinedly or put all these together, then also it can be reduces. Okay, so somehow the first without refer to what LVT routers, then second is HVT routers. So MTTF, the mean time to failure rate. So the mean time to failure rate is increases, means the failure is, the degradation is what lower. Then same about if you are talking about the C is refer to the power and thermal aware floor plan. So still it is have here. Okay, and the D, if I am combining all the techniques in it, then it find the way to increase the reliability of a chip. Okay. Now, there's still the problem is what the low power NOC architectures. Then we have synthesized a router and we design a particular Verilog code of a router and be synthesized on a Synopsys design compiler on the 32 nanometer technology. So if you just see the red area, which is the buffer, which at the router is the maximum, it takes the maximum area and the maximum power. Then the crossbar is second one, then the links, then the allocator and the clock. Okay, so clock network basically this one. So this is the dynamic power of NOC component. And if you see the inferences of this synthesis, that the crossbar and the buffers are the maximum leakage power. Okay, so whenever you are decreasing the 32 nanometer to 7 nanometer or 11 nanometer, the leakage power is also increases. So it's a big problem. Somehow you have to manage this leakage power. Okay, so the contribution of NOC in the total power budgeted CMP is 30 to 40. Okay, so you have a suppose 1000 number of cores, then the 30% to 40% budget of is your NOC, and the input buffers of router consume most of in NOCs के अंदर. Okay, and therefore the designer need to design a low power communication architecture of NOC by reducing the power consumptions buffers. Okay, so the way that reduce the frequency of a virtual channel buffers, I have a frequency FFF and I'm passing A, B, C, so I can reduce the frequency of FY2 and FY4 of this one. Okay, but now I have to think about the clock networks also. Okay, so reduce the frequency of these buffers, so switching activity is affected here. Okay, is the one way, and another way is that I can clock gated them. If they are not used, I clock gated them, so I can also reduce the power of it. Okay, so clock gating and you can say the frequency, reduce the frequency is a way. Okay, so the clock gating circuits you have to use. So zero frequency of BC, okay, BNC. So it's it's a reduce the dynamic power of this one, but it's still it have about the static power. So you can use the power gating also for that. So we have about right enabled signal in it, and this is the latch and this is the clock. So that's why with the gated clocks in each and every direction, north, east, south, west. So where the buffers are attached. So at a time only one can be enabled. So which route is selected? So the selected route can be enabled the selected directions. So other can be got into clock gate. So we reduce the dynamic power of it. So this is the syntax that we use for it. And another, whenever we choose a W, suppose the W is the way of direction of a router, and in the router, whenever it's selected the buffer of the W sides, so we can also reduce the number of VC virtual channels. So suppose this virtual channels does not occupied, then I am also going the one depth level of the clock gating in it. So there is a two step of clock gating. One is the direction, and another is the virtual channels. So ultimately, routing logic enabled clock gating is on input channel buffers, which reduce my powers. So we have synthesized this router on it, and we find out these are the buffer in milliwatt and on the different frequencies. So BRAM have the highest of this one. Okay, so that is the FIFO. This is your buffers. The logic have the least ones. Okay, now the another is you have with the power of the clock getting technology. So it must be, so here is 253. Previously it's about 284. Okay, so you reduce the power. Okay, so the power optimization techniques with the FIFO power, that is without clock gating is 71. Input port and VC clock gating is you are using the 63.74 milliwatt. Okay, and same about the logic power. So you gain in both the sections. But if you look about the Xilinx clock gettings FPGA board, so it will reduce each and every layer of your logic gates also in the clock gating. So that is also called the smart clock gating technology in the FPGA. So it reduces was 71 to 17.2. It's a huge reflection of it. Okay, so the clock gating provide me a beneficial effect in NOC. Okay, so these are the power consumption, static, dynamic, and the total power of this one, and these are the utilizations of. Now, the thing is that why we switch to photonic? Okay. If you just look very carefully to improve the performance and energy in a future many core processors, it is that your interconnect must be optimized, because that we have seen. Like, if I'm just discussing the what technology aspects and all these things here, please. You have some chip area. Okay. So this is the chip area here. So you are putting some of the transistor here. Okay. Transistor count here. So it's have what area A, and this is suppose it's generating the power P. Okay. And you are generating suppose number of core is N here. Okay. So what happens if you are increasing, if you want to with the increasing the number of core inside a chip, what you want, you doesn't want the space can be increases or the area can be increases. So you put the more number of transistor in. So whenever you are putting the more number of transistor in it, because you need a computational unit here, and the computational unit is also can be built by the only transistors. You can put the more transistors. So whenever you are putting the more transistors, it reflected in the more power. Your area is same, so your power density, okay, power per unit area is obviously increasing. So if you are packing in such a way that if you are increasing the number of transistor and the power density is increases, then it lead to a what thermal or the hotspots or the chip failure. Okay, so and we have seen that the 30 to 40% of many core architecture is used by NOC. So the the limit is here is power. Okay, the power is a limit here. Okay, now we have to find out some solution which is what working with the least power. Okay, so silicon photonics is a promising new interconnect technology with low power, high bandwidth density, and shorter latencies. Okay, and the optical NOC is a power is independent of transmission distance. So that is the concept. So power is independent of transmission distance. So previously, whenever we are using the bus and all other technologies like routers, NOC, they have what? Power consumable units. Okay. If suppose if I'm increasing the what size of a what my NOC or the what the number of core is what 8 cross 8, 2 cross 2, say 8 cross 8. Okay. And if suppose that about the interconnects is also increases, the chip is also increases, then the power dissipation is also increases. Here is the power is independent of transmission distance and the small transmission latency, and it provides a large data bandwidth. So this is the way that we can what go for a new research. So once a photonic path in optical NOC, once once a photonic path is established between the what source to destination routers or the source to destination core, then the data is transmitted end to end without the need of repeating, regenerating, and buffering. Okay, and the architecture of photonic NOC is hybrid approach. So you have what electronics part and you have the what photonic parts. Okay. So photonic interconnect networks is transmit high bandwidth messages. So whenever you are passing the message, you use the photonic networks. And the electronics is control networks. So what is control? The control the photonic network with the small control message. So you first establish the connection using the word control networks. Okay. So before transmitting a photonic message on the what network on chip, an electrical control packet that is called path setup packets you can send, and is used to what provide the establishment the connection of what source to destination between the source to destination, and you can say is routed the electronic network. So your control message which is providing a source to destinations path setup path packets, okay, is used it. And after establishing the connection between the source to destinations, you pass the message or using photonic networks. That is what transmitted without buffering, because it's have a what large bandwidth. Okay, so previously we have the routers which have the buffers, but here is you can transmit without buffering. So optical NOC has the advantage is what photonic switches switch on and off per message, but energy dissipation does not depends on the bit rate here. And the CMOS routers switch with every bit on transmitted data. So that's why the switching activity in the buffers is what highly. So the buffer are what the victim of what power. Okay. So optical NOC advantage is what power dissipation on a photonic link. Sorry, the photonic link is completely independent of transmission distance. So no matter the 20 core are on 2 millimeter or the 2 centimeter apart. Are you getting my point? So that's why this area of the what the optical NOC is used. And another that if in 3D memories or 3D computational units, you have the different layers on it. Okay. So like if I am drawing this 3D layer here, suppose they are the what the 3D layers here. So they are connected through silicon vias, TSV. You can say these are the TSV connections. Okay. But inside this one is what they can be what pass the information using photonic, photonic, photonic. Okay. And somehow the some nodes are maybe can be what classical routers. So whenever you are designing 3D, this is what the power is also concerned in it. Okay. And the one concept is that I left with this you pupils is one is why need this what starting is what your software hardware combinations. Okay. So your hardware is that are two words that we cannot match each other. One is what parallel and concurrent. So a hardware can be what serial or parallel, and your software can be what sequential or concurrent. Please listen it very carefully. Okay. So you have the four stacks. Whenever you are running a program P, okay, or a process P, which have a what thread also. So you have a single thread, single process, and single core execution. So one is what this is hardware. This is you can say serial. That is what I have a single core like Pentium 4. Okay. So I can run a C program, which is what written into what software, which is written into the C. So it is a sequential one. So I can execute it. Okay. So, and also it is single threaded. So there is no problem. You have a sequential program and serial machine, Pentium 4, you can use it. But whenever you have the what multiple process and single core, then, or you can say this multiple process can be run concurrently, then it is also possible on the Pentium 4 that if you heard about it, you are running the BINAM and sometimes you are working with the Microsoft Word. So this is only provided by the operating system, have provided this facility, that is what context switch. Okay. Is it clear to everybody? And this is the last one. Whenever you have the what 1,000 number of cores, and but you are writing the serial code software. So this is what meaningless. Okay. For the serial code, you use only single code. Okay. But whenever you have what 900 cores and suppose 2,000 process. Okay. So this is what something is what parallel concurrent execution. Okay. So now you have to write a program in such a way that you can utilize these number of cores. Okay. These utilize these number of cores, and this programming is called the parallel programming. So you cannot mix the word concurrent and parallel. So parallel is always using with the what hardware, and the concurrent is always using with the software. So this is called the parallel concurrent executions. So somehow whenever we am using these 900 cores with the 2000 process, I have to use somewhat network on chip communication. Okay, and I have to think about the what how much parallelism is also possible for a algorithm that is given by the Amdahl's law. Okay, so if I'm saying that you have a one processor and which is executing something, and I am adding the 100 number of cores, and after it I want the 90% of enhancement, then if you calculating using that using the Amdahl's law, you have only 0.001 sequential programs, and 99.99 is your parallel program, which is technically not possible. Okay, so whenever you use this multi-core architectures, we have to think about is to think to about the use of it. Okay, so basically whenever we have about the very huge applications, then we can increase the number of cores, and we have to introduce the NOC. And whenever we use some data centers or the high computational units or engines, then we have to also think about the photonic NOCs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from participant side? So if anyone is having any question, they can write on chat box also. So I think this, yes, ma'am.
Sir, can you suggest
Yeah.
any books to know more about this photonic network on chip? Any source to learn more about this topic? Is it available?
Yeah. I think 2-3 pupils who was very good working on it. You can visit the Professor Sarangi sir IIT Delhi's page, and also you can visit Sudeep Pachlesa from CMU. Okay, then where the I think the book is also available for interconnect network on chip is available for photonics with the Sudeep Pachlesa.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I will send the link.
Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
First of all, I would like to thank for such an informative session by you.
Thank
Sir, I have a query that you have shown us that by using a particular routing technique, we can
Yeah.
offload or minimize the traffic on a particular node. So suppose I am using converged network, optical wireless converged network, in which I have one GPON and another one as LTE advanced traffic. So is that routing technique is equally applicable on that architecture also?
Uh,
Because we
So-
are using two different networks. One is passive optical network, another one is LTE. One is wired, another one is wireless. So we are converging both these networks. So whatever you have discussed is basically optical communication. That if I am using ring topology or if I am using mesh topology, so that topology equally works in converged architecture also for offloading the node.
no, some of the pupils are using what the different topology in the optical networks. Okay, and
Yes, sir.
if suppose if I'm using the mesh topology, and
Mm.
the only way is possible is 2-3 possible is that whenever you have to set up any algorithm for that. Okay, so you
Yes,
have to
sir.
use the control signal from electronics. Okay,
Yes, sir.
the router have the same property. It's route the packets. Okay, so one network
Okay.
is for what photonic, which is used for what message passing, and one is for establishing the connection, which is optoelectrical hybrid routers you have to use. I think that
So,
is
sir, we need to develop one
a
novel
new
resource
router.
allocation
Yeah,
algorithm, na?
yeah, yeah,
First.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That is something different from the what the classical we are using in the network on chip, obviously.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's what I am asking. Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Any more questions? I think because I think no one in chat box also, no question is there, I think. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Ashish Sharma sir. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And I really believe that some of the researchers are exploring this area as well for working on. And this lecture will contribute a lot for this, for their research. Thank you so much, sir, for your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you all participants. Thank you.
Just